basic study of Buddhism. We look at some of the key terms and concepts, and also one thing is in terms of practice today, where we would love to talk about 2,500 years, 2,600 years actually. So we can like highlight the key ideas, and today we begin some key terms. Okay, so today the title is How Did Buddhism Arise? Social Background of Early Buddhism, the Reform Movements versus Established Brahmanism. Brahmanism, what is that? I mean, and Brahma, I can give a flyer to each person. So syllabus is that. And then how Buddhism changed religion in ancient India. So that's more or less our syllabus. So, it's just a reference. So first of all, of course, when we look at Buddhism generally, we always begin with three keywords. Okay? Buddhism, the shortest summary would be three jewels. The three jewels. The word jewels, if you like, T means three. This is Pali, by the way. Now, at any point, I'm not sure any terms are important to ask because it's a basic class, so sometimes we use certain words thinking that we know it already. So Pali is the kind of what's called religious language. It's not a dead language because we're still using it, so we call it a sacred language, religious language. A dead language means you don't use it anymore. Pali we still use, but Pali is not it's not spoken language like Hokkien or English. It was especially, you might say, especially evolved by the monks who live in the. If you look at your map, somewhere this part here. Okay? After the Buddha passed away, there are some monks here. They put together, they chanted the Buddha's teachings. So they use their own dialect. But as you know, dialects are limited in certain words. For example, it's just like in Singapore, somebody decided to collect the Buddha's first say in Hokkien. You find that maybe the Hokkien word there's no word for nirvana. So you've got to borrow it from Mandarin, something like that. So you find in Pali, there are some words borrowed from Sanskrit. So basically we know, in other words, this Pali is specially evolved to preserve the Buddha's teaching. As you know, here we specialize translating the Buddhist suttas. They are called the Tipitaka. Suttas means the ancient texts of the Buddha's teaching, the suttas. So I've been translating them so that we have a good idea on what the original teachings of the Buddha are. Okay, it's not easy to really know exactly, but we have some very good ideas from the way the suttas are preserved, and also through meditation. Because remember, the purpose of Buddhism is not just studying all these things. The purpose of Buddhism is peace of mind, clear our mind, so understand nature of suffering, and remove suffering from ourselves. That is called enlightenment or awakening. So we are studying all this. In other words, we are preparing the ground, getting the vocabulary, the terms, so that we can understand people talk about Buddhism. In other words, we can discuss Buddhism, we can receive instructions on meditation, and we can talk about what happens in the mind when we meditate. Because when you're meditating, you don't use any words. But when you come out of it, you've got to communicate that. It's just like driving, you see. Before you drive, the instructor has words. But while you're driving, you have to watch the road, know what's going on. You don't talk anymore. You just drive. If you are learning driving, so same thing with Buddhism. So doctrinally, we can look at three jewels. T meaning three. This is Pali. Ratana, jewel. Okay. Or if you like, if you want, we also have Sanskrit. Sanskrit is closer to English. We've got three. Rat. So you can see that the language is a bit different. In Pali, the sound tends to be a bit more simple, flowing. It's more dialectical, more, what we call it Vulgate messaging, like it's language of the crowd. This one is like high class language, tris, rhymes, three rhymes, but the meaning is the same. They're called three words because they are precious to the follower. You have the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. Now these three words are anglicized. They're English words actually, because you can find them in the Oxford Dictionary and the larger dictionaries. So these are anglicized terms of the Pali and Sanskrit. Okay? So actually this is Sanskrit. But the Western powers that conquered India, they also started studying Indian culture. The British were very keen. Wherever they went, they studied local culture, but their aims was far from being noble. Their aim was actually how to really control local people. So you got to know their language, got to know their culture. But then it cut both ways, you see. When they started studying all this local culture, they thought, wow, it's really very profound. For example, especially India, see? So when the British colonialists studied Sanskrit, first of all, the first thing they were amazed is the closeness of the word, like tree, and in English you have triangle, triangle. This is amazing, this is so close. And then they found the language became, the more they study, the more connection they see between Sanskrit and English. So the interest deepened, and then they discovered Buddhism and so on. So they were the ones who started all this, the Pali Text Society, where they collect all this manuscript, because they were very good in collecting ancient manuscript. They were studying the Bible and in Hebrew and Greek and so on. So they applied this learning to this text. So from there we get all this modern version of the ancient Buddhist text. So that's the, if you like, you can call it the Western school. At the same time, we also have our own traditional schools, the Southern school as they're called. They're called Southern school because we got Sri Lanka, okay, South Asia, it is Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and so on. Okay. Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, not too bad. The countries preserve the teachings, but Cambodia went through a lot of suffering. In fact, for one generation, a couple of generations, they lost everything. All brought in the communists, destroyed everything, and now they're restarting all over. So we have this ancient tradition also, South Asia, and then we have the Western tradition. We collected all these ancient scripts and started checking them, and then from there we get our new translations. So here we value all those ancient scripts. We use script from the West, with the scripture from South Asia, and we translate them into English again, complete with notes. Okay. So that actually is the Dharma. We're talking about the Dharma. Okay? So let me come back to here. Three jewels. Why three? This is the teacher. The Buddha is the teacher. And this is a very important word we use. This is the Buddha is the teacher. The various Pali words of teacher, Sattva, and so on. We don't call him a prophet because nobody sent him here. He did not come here to proclaim another person's teaching. Right? However, notice here the Buddha is small b. So the Buddha is a unique person. In other words, in every world cycle, or in a certain period of time, it can be quite long this time, maybe a few thousand years or even longer, there's only one Buddha. It's just like you only need one person to discover theory of relativity, or someone who discovered fire, just one person. Once you discover, it's already enough. So the Buddha discovered the nature of suffering and the Four Noble Truth. So you only need one teacher, one captain of the ship, so to speak. So each time span, we call it dispensation, is only one teacher, one Buddha. Okay? Of course, if you like, his full title then would be Samma. Samma means fully, complete, just like in English, summa, S-U-M-M-A, or Latin, Now I put a little comma here just to show you, to break up the long word, so it's easier to read. Actually it's one word. Sam Buddha. This is his complete title. When we chant salutation of the Buddha, Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddho. So the A changed to O. That's the grammar. So fully, Samma is fully. Sam means self. He himself awakened. He was awakened. That means he discovered the truth of ending of suffering by himself. Okay. Fully self-awakened. So Buddha means awakened. Awakened one. Buddha can also mean the one who has understood the nature of life. Okay. So he is the teacher. It's very important to understand. Because if he's not even a God. Meaning that even as a God, you are part of the universe. Okay? So if you are part of the universe, that means you are impermanent. Whatever exists must exist in impermanence. When we say something exists, logically, naturally, necessarily, it means it must be impermanent. You cannot exist permanently. Or simplify that, we can say we cannot exist unchanging. It's meaningless to talk about something that exists unchanging, because if unchanging, it's like me standing here just tell you one sound. It doesn't make sense. You understand it because there is modulation in my voice, there is change in tone, different in sound, words, and then you are trained, you hear me, you understand. So the change is very important. So whatever exists in the universe must change. So what the Buddha discovered is there is actually a way out, so to speak, of this suffering nature of the universe, which we'll go into in future lessons. So here there is only one Buddha. He's not God, and yet he will not be reborn, meaning he will not face suffering again. Whereas the other gods, they were still, because they exist, they will later die anyway, although their lifespan is not very long. Right? So you notice already there's so many things we can talk about here. So also like the nature of the gods, nature of the Buddha, the nature of existence, we'll talk a bit in another lesson. Okay? Come on. Okay. Right, so anyway, yeah. Okay, Jen, would like to introduce yourself?
For you.
Okay, thanks.
Jen actually is quite advanced in Buddhism.
No,
She's very
but
humble
still
and coming.
learner.
Okay. So let's discuss. So I'm going to the background of meaning of the words. So the fact that the Buddha is the teacher is very important to us. In other words, we can become the Buddha if we choose to. And it's not easy. You know? It's like want to become a professor with the what do you call it? Complete title, summa cum laude. By the way, the word summa cum laude, have you heard of that word? Okay, summa, same word. Summa cum laude really is an American term. I'm not sure exactly what it refers to. Anyone knows exactly? My understanding it means you already finished that course perfect score. Okay. If I'm not mistaken, you translate to English, complete with praises, something like that. Yeah? Like honorary, what do you call it? Honors. You know? So, anyway, in the case of the Buddha, if the Buddha is a God, we can't become Buddha. Because he's a God very high, right? Especially capital G God. Right? So, because he's not, and yet he's perfect in the sense that he's overcome suffering, we can also become Buddha if we want to. But then again, we don't have to, because becoming a Buddha is not that simple. What does it mean? It means, number one, you will go out teaching. You meet all kinds of people. You will go through all kinds of suffering. I like to say that Buddha is like he has a PhD in suffering. Every kind of suffering he has gone through. So when you go to him, he knows. He can tell, I know that one. And he will explain to you, he will heal you. So he's gone through many lives in the past. He's experienced every imaginable suffering. Gone to hell, gone to heaven, done this, done that. He was born as different kind of animals, different kind of human beings. So countless life. Traditionally, it is said that he it took him 91 world cycles to become Buddha. One world cycle is one cycle of the universe, to speak. And that's a long time. So the meaning is that he went through a lot of suffering. And his last birth, we call him Buddha. Now because he's done that, we don't have to do that. Because that's very tough. Right? It's enough for us, for example, to learn what he has to say, calm the mind, sit quietly, watch our breath, do loving kindness, and we feel greatly peaceful. That's good enough for us. Okay? And that's called the Dharma, see? So, but of course, the way I've explained it, the Dharma refers to the teaching, or more exactly the practice. Okay? Teaching, practice comes under this category. In fact, the word Dharma, or Sanskrit Dharma, is the, what should I say, it's got the most definition in any language. Okay? It's like the English word thing. If you don't know what it is, you say, what is that thing? Right? So Dharma is that. Dharma has got many meanings. It's got, I would say, literally dozens of meanings. But most of them don't concern us anyway. We just look at the meanings that concern us. Number one, Dharma means truth. So we say Buddha Dhamma. Okay? Sometimes we can refer to Buddha's teaching as Buddha Dhamma, the Dhamma of the Buddha. And this makes it clear that it's the teaching of the Buddha. Because there's also the Brahmin Dharma, the Kshatriya Dharma, and so on. So Dharma can also mean code of practice. It can also mean code in the sense like code of conduct. Let's say this is the code of conduct of the professionals, the code of conduct of the president's office, right? So Dharma also means that. We'll talk a bit more about that definition of Dharma later when we talk about the four classes and why the Buddha's teaching addressed to them also. In other words, what problems the Buddha had to face when he was teaching in India. Second meaning is, of course, teaching. Oh yeah, truth. What the Buddha's teaching is truth. He sees for himself, he discovers for himself, and he noticed three things, three basic truths, universal truth. Okay? He doesn't claim this is his personal teaching. He said this is the nature of things. And this is very important to understand. The Buddha did not invent Buddhism. In a sense, it is better to say Buddha discovered Buddhism. In other words, it's all the time there. We are sleeping, we don't see, we are dreaming, we are doing delusion, we don't really see this. But the Buddha says, wake up, I've seen this is the real thing. So what is the real thing? Number one, he says everything is impermanent. First basic truth, and everyone agrees with that. I'm sure none of us here will disagree. So the next thing is, if something is impermanent, it is also unsatisfactory. Number two, unsatisfactory. So these two truths are very easy to understand. The first word is anicca, impermanent. Okay? Even though this chair may look solid, but it is impermanent. Over time, it will dissolve. It's made up of parts. Somebody made it in a factory using chemicals, right? Even metal put together. Everything is put together, either naturally or synthetically. Impermanent. So the nature is to change. Anicca and then dukkha. This is all Pali terms. These terms you see them again and again. Do is just like the English word diff in difficult, okay? Difficult to tolerate. Dukkha means difficult to tolerate. Usually translated as suffering. But when some people hear it, they say, oh, it isn't so negative. Actually, there are different translations. We can also translate as unsatisfactoriness. The meaning of dukkha means life is such that even if we get everything we want in life, especially when we get everything we want in life, we suddenly realize we want more. You know? You may aim something in life. Let's say the young man says, okay, I'm going to make my first million 20 years old. Yeah, it's just 20, he makes his 2 million. I said, no, it's not much money. I think I want to make 10 million and so on. And the minister's pay is very high. So in the end, he said, it's not much, so he doesn't know where to end. And the worst part is, as he goes on chasing money, he realized he has no life. All the time working, and he gets sick and then couldn't enjoy life. So he begins to start to wonder, what's going on? That's one understanding of something. In other words, there is something else we are looking for, and somehow we don't know what it is yet. But it's that. We know it's that. What is it we are looking for? And I can't tell you yet, because you got to see your own mind, basically. So here, of course, we are laying the map, okay? And we can more or less identify it. And as we go deeper, we will begin to see more clearly also. So, we are incomplete beings. And we are looking at it is, we are still incomplete. We are still in process. We are still growing. And this is a very wonderful philosophy, because other religions tell you, oh, you are bad, you're evil, you know. So here we're trying to say, right, there's another program. And if you like the program, of course you can use the approach. But in Buddhism we say, no, it's not that you're evil, it's just that we are ignorant. Okay, that's another thing. This suffering arises from ignorance. So if there's any evil, it is ignorance. Because of our ignorance, we make mistakes. So this is something we need to learn. And ignorance of what? Come to the third idea. These are called the three universal characteristics. The third one is the most difficult. Okay, we will deal with this three again another time. Today, more like we are looking at the words as syllabus, and then we go deeper as we progress. Atta means self. The Sanskrit, the Brahmins, the priests, they have a word called Atman. Now, if you see a line over here, it's called a macron. It means it's a long sound. Okay? Atman. Okay? You will see where is the long. Anyway, yeah, Samma. So Atman. Well, this is Sanskrit. In Pali, it is Atta. Anatta means no sound, not sound. But there are a lot of issues with the kind of those ideas, because we can forget. If someone forgets himself, he's found roaming in the street, we ask him what's your name, he says, I don't know. This guy got no identity. So a lot of issues arise. And then there are people who actually get into a situation where there are multiple identities. So this is another area we might discuss this time, issue of identity. But simply put here, we are not always the same person. Now this is very useful, because we cannot say such thing as, oh, this person cannot change. Like, because we are actually changing all the time. Because there's no such thing as someone who cannot change. There's no such thing as somebody who's always bad or always good. You know, we're all up and down. Okay? So we have to train ourselves to be more good than bad, so to speak. And slowly we become that kind of person. Right? So our mind is a process, our body is a process, without any permanent entity behind it. And this is nothing new, in a sense. To the scientists also, you know, they, especially quantum physics, you know, they say there is no final element, no final state of matter. The pre-quantum people, of course, thought there was something called atom, but then the quantum physics said no such thing. So again, you see the parallel in science. Okay, these three things, any questions? So, impermanence, suffering, not suffering. Okay, this is introduce the terms first. This is the nature of all life everywhere in this universe. Okay? Wherever things exist, wherever there are people, there are beings, these three universal laws. In fact, the Buddha said, whether the Buddhas arise or not, all these three things exist. But the third teaching, only the Buddhas can declare it. This third teaching is very deep, so only the Buddha can teach this. For example, when we meditate, if you keep thinking about, I feel the pain, if you keep being troubled by the pain, that's because you identify with the pain. You say, wow, I'm feeling pain, I'm pain. So you identify that the pain gets worse. So psychologically, these ideas are very important. Okay? And I'll be mentioning off and on, because as you know, we do meditation also. So when we let go of the idea of the I, the pain gets less. In other words, to put it simply, the problem is not that we have a self. The problem is that we have the idea that there is a self. So what we get rid of It's not the self. What we carry on actually is the idea that there's a self. So that's the meaning of selfishness, ishness. So let go of the idea. So if you can let go of the idea, then you get less hurt. People cannot hurt you. If someone says something bad to you, you are very upset. That's because, hey, doesn't this guy know I'm a famous teacher, no? Or I'm a boss, or I'm like this, like that, and he gets angry. Because he thinks of a role, he thinks of identity. Right? Some of my students are very strange now. I deal with young people, and adolescents sometimes they can be ask funny question. Depends, especially the kind of family where they've been abused, the father is very tough, So the father is abusive, so they come in, they ask funny question, especially when they see a non-threatening. Okay? If I don't wear a robe, I look like anyone else, so I'm trying to be friendly with people. So when you're over friendly, you get sent to trouble sometimes. So I get students who ask me, are you enlightened? Very direct and almost loud, And other students got shocked and they wow, this guy, why is he like that, I said, no, don't get angry. I'm 40 years of doing this, I know what's going on. He's not being rude with me. That's the way he has been brought up. He's responding to the past. And it's a very interesting study. In fact, I'll later the reflection of this later is coming up next round. So, if I did not study Buddhism, I say, what's wrong with this guy? Doesn't he know I'm a teacher? I'm older than him, and so on. Then you get angry, you see? Because why? You have a self-identity. You say, this is what I am. So you must respect me, you get upset. On the other hand, if you understand the nature of these things, and you look at this boy, you say, why is he behaving like this? That's more interesting. So in Buddhism, we often ask a lot of questions. Why? And then the answers come up. But that's what the Buddha did. He asked, why? Okay? So, you notice that there's a lot to talk about this, no? But we will move on for the moment. So that's the Dharma, the nature of things. No, I'm not going too fast. Any questions? Okay. So the Buddha's teaching in the Buddha's time. If you look in the Buddhist scriptures, the word Buddhism doesn't exist. The word Buddhism is a modern invention. So what was Buddhism as we might call it in the Buddhist scriptures? It is sometimes called Dhamma Vinaya. Okay? Dhamma Vinaya here would mean the teaching and the discipline. Teaching would be the suttas, the teaching Buddha gave the monks and other people. The Vinaya are the monks' rules, the rules for the monks. Okay? So the monks are under this category. So Dhamma, Vinaya, the only two styles. Then later, we have what I call the Tripitaka. Tripitaka in Sanskrit, the three baskets. Okay? Let me write it here. The three baskets are one called Vinaya, or Vinaya Pitaka, and the word Pitaka at the end. Okay. And Sutta Pitaka, and Abhidhana Pitaka. So in other words, this Tipitaka, or three baskets, Pitaka means baskets, they were compiled after the Buddha passed away. The Buddha taught for 45 years. 45 years. He was enlightened around 80 minus 45. How many years?
35.
Sorry? 35. So he was enlightened at 35. Right? And then he taught for 45 years. That's a long time. Right? So nothing was recorded on paper. There was no paper in India at that time. Nothing was written down. Because whatever is sacred is never written down. It must be transmitted living. This is the tradition of the Buddha's time. There was writing in the Buddha's time, but only the kings and the merchants used writing. the secular world. The king used writing to pass secret messages and commands to the army, for example, or state secrets. So common people don't know how to read. The merchants have to write to keep accounts. So imagine, writing is secular, worldly, so the teachers will use writing. The teachers prefer you to come to the teacher and get the teaching directly. That's why the oral tradition is very important. The teacher look at you, teaches you, and also teaches, corrects your personality. Right? So it's an overall training. So Vinaya, so these things were later written down. After Buddha passed away, they were written down because there was a huge collection of teaching. We're talking about 45 years. In fact, if you compare just the early Buddhist scriptures, the early Buddhist texts, the size of the Buddhist text, the Tripitaka, is about 11 times the Bible. Now that's why Buddhists don't carry their holy books to temple or something. It's a lot to carry. And the Mahayana one is worse, 100 volumes, huge. Okay. So, first collection is Vinaya Pitaka, that is the rules of the monks and nuns. The one. Sutta Pitaka are the teachings, which I'm most interested in, which we study here. And the last one is interesting. Last one is a later development, where all the scholar monks, philosopher monks, they started analyzing the Buddha's teaching and they started systematizing them. Okay? Remember, the Buddha taught ad hoc, You come to him, he looks at your personality, he will teach you. He doesn't teach like a school teacher, Everything on syllabus, exact. He gives you just enough teaching for you to heal yourself, for you to get enlightened. So sometimes you teach all the 8 4 paths, here only 3, there only 5, depending on your needs. For example, let me give you an example. The Buddha talks about the 6 senses. We have 6 senses, 5 physical senses plus the mind. 6 senses. In Buddhism, we always talk about 6 senses. 5 senses is mentioned, yes, but to be complete, we must have 6 senses. Namely, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, 5 physical senses. The 6th one is the mind. Right? Now, in all the 5 senses, the Buddha gives the location of the sense experience. For example, seeing is extension of the eye, hearing extension of the ear, smell the nose, taste the tongue, touch is the body. But the mind, the Buddha didn't mention where the mind is located. This is a big problem, even until today with the modern scientists. Where is the mind located? You have 2 big schools. Mostly the scientists today say that the brain is the mind. Buddhism said no, Buddhism does not. Buddhism does not locate it anywhere. Okay? Because the mind is such you can't locate it anywhere. So the Abhidhamma people had a problem, you see. The Abhidhamma people, they're very exacting. They try to make everything exact and systematic. They like numbers. Okay? So, they say the Buddha locates 6 internal senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, 6 external senses, seeing got the eye, sound got the ear, and so on. But thinking, no location. So they said this is a bit incomplete. So they were discussing with themselves, where is the mind located? They searched the whole Tripitaka, the Buddha never mentioned where the mind is located. The simple fact is the mind is not located anywhere, but they were not satisfied with that. So there's one short line somewhere in one of the texts, and they used that. And then they concluded that to follow the general belief in those days. In fact, the general belief in those days in India and today in China is the same thing. Do you know where, in this case, great Abhidhamma people, they say it's located in the heart. So notice, even in those days, they never say it's the brain, they say it's the heart. That is why in Chinese, the word Xing means both heart and mind, right? So, to the Abhidhamma people, they say consciousness or the mind is located in the center of the body, right? But this is something new. So, I'm giving this example just to show you that Abhidhamma today is something that can be quite popular. If an Abhidhamma teacher comes from Dharma especially, then it's, Vidama, actually nobody understands what they're talking. It's very deep. I think some of you have gone for Vidama classes. You find what 16, 17 thought moments, 108 this, and you do that, you know. And in the end, you ask yourself, how do I use all this? Right? You find it's a bit difficult. Anyway, just to tell you, this is a later systematization of the Buddha's teaching. Right? It might be useful if you're very good in maths. But even then, when you meditate, you go to like God. So those are the two baskets. This is the one, eh? So this is the Buddha's teaching. Yeah? So Buddha's teaching you can also divide into two: theory, practice. So I've spoken of the theory, practice is meditation. Since we are here, let me say a bit more about the training. So the Buddhist training is called the three trainings. But we train ourselves in three ways. Number one is called moral virtue. Maybe I read the Pali words. It's good to know the Pali words because teachers often use them. Sila means moral virtue. Samadhi means concentration, wisdom, concentration or mental cultivation or meditation. Panya is wisdom. Okay. Now the N with the this is called a tilde. Tilde. It changed the N sign to nya, Spanish. Panya, wisdom. So this is the three trainings. As Buddhists, we go through the three trainings. Training means it's ongoing. We practice it on until we're enlightened. The first thing we should train in is sila. Sila means moral virtue. Moral virtue refers to the body and speech. Okay? I think we'll talk about the training. Yeah, next week, in detail. So today I'm introducing the terms. We train our body and speech. We discipline them, understand them so that they don't distract us. In other words, our body and speech become peaceful so that we can meditate better. That's number two, samadhi. Samadhi means concentration. It also means meditation or mental cultivation. Now these two, when we're at peace with our body and speech, we're at peace with our mind, wisdom will arise. Panya means wisdom. What is wisdom? Seeing things as they really are, not what they appear to be. For example, you see a mirage. Wow, it looks like there's water in the desert. You know it's a mirage. Right? So that's wisdom. Wisdom is just not knowledge. Wisdom is knowing what things really are. So that is why you practice meditation. Okay? Most people come to first contact with Buddhism. Nowadays in Singapore, especially, we go to the second, this meditation. And a lot of people also will realize you can't just sit down and meditate. You need a guide. Why is the guide important? The guide is telling you got to prepare your body and speech for meditation. So when everything is synchronized, you can meditate better. Okay. Okay, so that's number three here. The Sangha. So remember we're talking about three jewels. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So that's the teacher, Dharma is the teaching. And the Buddha always puts the Dharma above him. This is another interesting point. The Buddha says Dharma is above him. So the Buddha says we should not worship him. We should not adore him like a god like that. Unfortunately, after he passed away, when the teacher dies, people stop anything and they start worshiping him. Right? It's very common. Of course, there are Buddhists who understand the teaching. They understand by what the Buddha says is the supreme worship. What is the supreme worship? The true worship is to practice the teaching. Okay? Because the Buddha says, if you practice my teaching, you understand me. If you worship me, you won't understand. I mean, you may feel at peace, yeah. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just that Buddha is saying, this teaching I given you wisdom. Other religions will tell you bow down, do this, do that. In Buddhism, we do bow down, we do offer flowers, but they are symbolic gestures. They are objects of reflection. Okay, so we'll talk about that again another day. Right? So, if you like, you can say the Buddha here is the ideal of enlightenment, ideal of awakening. It's the ideal, so we are like a model, role model. The ideal of awakening. This is the method to awakening. And these are the examples of those who have awakened. The Sangha. Sangha, again, is a Pali Sanskrit word, same spelling. Sangha. And then you see this sun, the sun is spelled in different ways. Usually, most common is S-A-N like that, or S-A-N, or S-A-N. It's very similar to our, in English, con and com. Right? In English, we get the word connect, right? Connect means to put together. Compare, that means you bring two things together and look at them. So this con or com means to bring together. Okay? So same thing here, Sang, together. So Sangha means bring together. So before the Buddha's time, in fact during Buddha's time too, Sangha simply means a herd of cattle. To the ancient Indians, cattle is sacred, not because of anything religious. The cattle is wealth. Cattle gives milk. Okay, and meat of course, later on. So to them, it's a herd, a group. Then later the politicians, the rulers also use the word Sangha to refer to their country, or you might say their tribe. Okay? So Sangha also means tribe, community, republic. In fact, during the Buddhist time, there are two kinds of political entities. The republics, ruled by a group of people, like the Red Indians, tribal. And you have the kingdoms ruled by the king, two kinds of them. Okay? In fact, in the Buddhist time, there is this political shift which we'll talk about briefly later. So, the Buddha was born as a Sakya, remember? Sakya clan, right? Sakya. So he is a republican, so to speak. So that's why he used the word Sangha. And he used the word Sangha for his community of monks also. So it refers to the group of monks or his followers, Sangha. But here we must remember in early Buddhism is the Buddhism of the Buddha in India. Okay. Sangha refers only to the monks and nuns. Okay, this is very important to remember. The early meaning refers to monks and nuns. Now in later times, especially because of Japan, I'm writing a paper on Buddhism in Japan, how Buddhism became secularized and modernized in Japan. In 1872, the government introduced a law called the Nikujiki Saitai law. Nikujiki means eat meat, Saitai means get married. So the monks and nuns have to get married. So in other words, although they are monks and nuns, they also have families. So even the Zen people. So imagine, to them Sangha also can refer to lay people. So the Americans went to Japan, get ordained as Zen people. They went back to America. So they also use the word Sangha to refer to themselves. I have friends who are Zen teachers. They like to use the word Sangha. It's like the word church, you know. The word church means like community, so they like the word. But I wrote in my article, I said, this is The word Sangha refers to monks and nuns. If you cannot use it, I'm not alone, there were other people of Chandra also mentioned this. Anyway, historically, it's important for us to know Sangha originally means the monks and nuns, the monastics. Right? Now, what do we use for everyone, whether monks or nuns? The Buddha has a word. The word is parisa. Parisa means assembly. Assembly. Right? So, fourfold assembly. We got monks, nuns, laymen, laywomen. Okay. But even then, strictly speaking, in the suttas, when the Buddha taught parisa, he was talking about enlightened. He was talking about, must be at least trimuna, at least attain first stage sales. Then only you found the real community. Because that's another thing. Okay? But as I said, we won't go into too much details, just give you background of the words. So basically, we cannot show Sangha. Sangha is meant for monks and nuns. Parisa a bit more. Okay, so this is the three jewels, briefly. Let's just take a short 5 minutes break. I guess if you have a question, you can ask.
Is the word sutra same as sutra?
Sutra is Sanskrit.
Oh. This character of this Sangha. Because like the four has
Yeah.
8 individuals.
Nine, I think, how many? 12. I think 12 characteristics, I'm mistaken. So Patipanno, what about it?
That one, the four has an 8 individuals.
Yes.
The noble, what is Parisa or Sangha? Because
Purisa, that's Purisa Pukala. Purisa Pukala, individuals.
Individuals.
Class as individuals.
But that one is also.
That refer to the saint, eight kind of saints. They can be lay people also.
Yeah.
It can be lay people also. That is the chanting. Any other question? Any question? Not sure. Okay, no problem. Okay, so in the next half, we're going to look at history of why Buddhism arose in India. What are the things you have to face? Why is Buddhism the way it is, Christianity the way it is, Islam the way it is? You notice every religion because certain interesting characteristics. Right? Those days I used to go to Eaton House, Paya Lebar. Whenever the train stops, there's a church there. So they put some words like Jesus is Lord. All big power words. King, Lord. In Buddhism, we never, I wouldn't say we don't talk like that, but you don't see big signs like that. Of course, sometimes we do hear the Buddha is a Dhamma Raja, king the Dhamma, but it's very rare. If you look at Christianity, what's the background Christianity arose? The Romans were persecuting the Jews. The Jews were fighting back. They were suppressed, oppressed. They were waiting for someone to free a Messiah. So that's a very important background of the evolution. In fact, in a sense, you might say the whole Bible is reenacting this Savior thing. So that's because of the political background of the religion. Islam, again, a lot of fighting and problems, so they use a lot of war with jihad and so on. Of course, they use it in a peaceful way. Okay? The teachers, all their great teachers, always spoke in peace. The idea of peace is very important. Then the Buddha also spoke peace, but the difference is the Buddha said you can't look for the peace inside. Right?